Hello and welcome to the Bend Like Bamboo Resilience Show. To bend like bamboo is to master change with flexibility. And I get to interview very special guests talking about all things resilience. And today I'd love to welcome my very special guest, Linda Whitehead. Thank you, Linda, for coming on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Let me introduce you properly. Linda is the General Manager of JJ's, facilitator and founder of Three Little Moons Yoga, of classes and retreats in Mount Martha and Bali. Linda is the founder and facilitator of Yoga for Bros, an inclusive and non-judgmental space for bros to chill out and do yoga. So cool. I love it. For the past 25 years, Linda has been very focused on moving her way up the corporate ladder in retail buying and general management roles. Her current role is the group general manager of the JJ's brand, and she juggles the role of retail executive with being mum to 3 kids under 15. Wow, you're very busy.
Makes me sound really busy, doesn't it?
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show. And you've always inspired me, like you're superwoman in my eyes.
Don't know about that, but thank you.
And I love that you're the real deal. You walk your talk, and you see well-being and balance as very important. I'm sure that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, of how you got there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's key to have that balance. We can be busy and doing a whole lot of things, but if we aren't able to take that time out for ourselves, it's not going to be a long journey for anybody.
Exactly, exactly. So let's dive in. What does resilience mean to you?
Resilience to me, obviously, it's about being able to come out from the darkness. So, there's a quote in yoga or something we talk about a lot in yoga, which is about the lotus flower. So the lotus flower comes and grows from the depths of the mud. And that's sort of what resilience means to me. When you're in the depths of the mud and you're in a bad place, whether that's physical or emotional or mental or whatever it is, it's having that ability to come out and kind of, rebirth yourself really. And I think resilience also is an opportunity to come back even better than you were before.
Yeah.
And so, it's using the shadow and the darkness of that mud moment and using that to kind of empower you through and come out brighter, more dynamic, more fabulous than you were before.
Exactly. I love that. I think that's absolutely true, to overcome adversity and setbacks, but to come out the other end. Because when we go through the hard stuff, we come out the other end a different person.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do reflect when you're going through the hard stuff. You kind of decide, what do I want to leave behind and what do I want to do more of? And so that's really important as you do rebloom, that you take those learnings
Yeah,
and set yourself up in an even better position than where you were before.
that's true. That's true. What do you think stops us sometimes from leaving stuff behind, letting those dark aspects of us die off?
Oh, look, I think there's so much, there's so many reasons that you kind of hold on. We hold on because we're scared.
Yeah.
Often there's a fear about, will I be accepted if I'm not the way people thought I was before I got to this dark place? And yeah, we kind of fear often what others will think of us. We've lost our authenticity, for example, and as we come out of the depths of that mud, we might kind of say, I'm going to be more my true self, even if that means that people don't love that about me. So yeah, I think often it's fear. It's fear about what, the change,
The
change.
change, the
Yeah.
change. Exactly. I totally agree. So, how many years have you been in retail for?
Oh God, now you're gonna make me sound really old. About a bit over 25 years actually. So yeah, studied fashion design at uni, got into entry level roles in retail fashion through buying, design, all of those sorts of areas, merchandise management,
Yeah.
and into general management about nearly over 15 years ago into general management.
And it just progressively led there, or did you have it in your mind?
No, definitely progressively led there. And I think, the thing that attracted to me to these types of roles was the creativity of a fashion, design, buying. But as you kind of moved your way up the corporate ladder, you became more disconnected from that creative aspect, and you
Mm.
started to, have that responsibility for financials and customer experience, and while you broaden your understanding of the retail fashion world, you do come away from some of the part that was the reason you started, and that's a big journey. And I think often people find that as they move up the corporate ladder, they move away from some of their kind of real soul desires of started
Yes.
them on the path.
That's a really important thing to raise. And sometimes when we get to this destination that we imagine is the epitome of everything, it's not always the way that we thought it was going to be. But that's all meant to be that journey anyway. And then when we get there, we can decide, we come back and return. It's like the hero's journey, really.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's having that ability to observe yourself on the path, witness what is it that I'm liking about what I'm doing, what is it that I'm not liking about what I'm doing, and having the confidence and dropping away some of that fear so that you can keep evolving in a positive direction.
Yeah, bringing awareness in is so important.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And then because we become a whole new version of ourselves every single day, week, month, and with adversities that we go through. So it is important to take check, like reconciliate. Who am I now? What needs to die off? What do I need to dive into? Yeah.
absolutely. And I actually think even, as with you, I'm in Melbourne in this lockdown period, and this is a great time for us to observe that. Really take the time while we're forced to quieten down a little bit, to kind of decide, how do I want to move forward after we come out of this or move to a new
Yes.
COVID normal? What do I want that to look like?
What do you think's the biggest thing that you want to change when we come and emerge back out of lockdown?
I think for me is prioritizing myself, my kind of my self wellness, but also my family. I mean, as I've climbed this career ladder, it's been very much a focus of mine, and
Yeah.
I guess that's some of the learned behaviors you have from when you were younger, and
Yeah.
perhaps that comes from your parents or whatever, but there's been this real desire and focus that my work is my priority. It's got to suit everybody, but I'm going to be really pushing forward with that. And I think what I've learned is, it doesn't matter if you miss the first half an hour of that meeting, if it means you get to have a meaningful conversation with your child. And if you missed a day of work, it's not the end of the world. You can actually turn up to your kid's first day at school and all of those sorts of things. And so I think that's been a big reflection for me, is my family's my everything. And,
Yeah.
we've been in this little huddle, in this bubble for months now.
Yeah.
And work goes on. Like,
Yeah.
there's systems and processes set up to support you to go through all of that. So I need to learn that for myself, and that's just my own drive that I've got, and
Yeah,
that's
it doesn't have to be regimented and rigid. We can be more flexible in how the day unfolds. Yeah, that's what lockdown has taught me too. That's so true.
yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So I'd love you to share something that you've been through. Maybe it is your journey through the corporate world, of something you've had to overcome in your life.
Yeah, look, I think it probably is the journey through the corporate world. I've always, as I said, was looking for the next rung on the ladder. And so, my husband and I moved around a lot. Melbourne's our hometown where my parents are and my family are. And we went to New Zealand for a role, and then followed our dreams to go to London for a role. And then we came back to Sydney, and we're moving around a lot. And then I guess I got this opportunity for my dream job, which was the group general manager at JJ's with the Just Group. And I was like, wow, that's probably almost the epitome for me and the path that I'm on in retail Australia. So
Yeah.
I got offered the role. We had to move the whole family from Sydney back to Melbourne, sell the house and all the rest of it. So, but I was so driven. It's like, kids, come on, leave your school, let's go. We're all going to move back to Melbourne because mum's got this amazing job. And I guess I started the job, but I was kind of so starstruck by the people that worked there.
Yeah, I would be too.
Yeah, that I felt like I have to be like them. And so I thought that to fit in and to succeed there, I
Yeah.
had to act a certain way or dress a certain way or, you know, think about retail a certain way. And
Yeah.
I just really, I lost my way. So over the first year of being there, I got into this sort of negative spiral of this job isn't working for me, and maybe the company isn't right. And I was hard on myself. I felt like I couldn't make any decisions. I'd come home on the weekends and I just wanted to stay in bed and cry all weekend because I sort of thought maybe I'd made a mistake and this wasn't the role for me. And with that came this whole loss of identity because I'd identified myself as the corporate businesswoman and that I'm going to be this huge success. And then I was like, I'm failing and it mustn't be my fault. It must be everybody else's fault.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, I got into this really, really dark place where I just couldn't engage with the family. I had no energy. I was just blah. Like, I just
Yeah.
lost my passion for something that I'd loved for 25 plus years.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that really, really knocked me around actually.
It would have felt like this deep inner resistance within you, almost like an inner conflict, like where you thought your goals were, and then there was like this inner conflict of what you believed the way it should have been, or what you maybe imagined in your head, and then it wasn't that. But it sounds to me like that was so meant to be. That was your journey of individualization, of feeling separate, so that you would then question, is this what I want?
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of felt so uncomfortable. I felt like a bit of an imposter, really,
Yeah.
in my own skin. And yeah, that really put me into a bit of a dark place.
Yeah, that would have been awful. That would have been
Yeah.
awful. How long do you reckon you stayed in the dark place for?
Oh, look, I think it was coming on for sort of a year, but I had a couple of months that was pretty intense, and it was being fed off negativity. So then, I might confide in somebody in terms of, oh, this is terrible, and then they'd confide back. And that whole thing around
Mm,
if you talk negatively, it
yeah,
attracts more negativity, and then if you
absolutely.
talk positively all the time, it attracts positivity. So I wasn't helping myself, but I didn't have the self awareness that I have today. So I wasn't able to observe. Witness myself in that situation and think, what's going on? Why are you reacting in this way? So I just was like in a funk, really,
Yeah,
really in
yeah.
a funk.
And it would have changed how your inner dialogue, how you interact with others, your eating habits. I'm imagining exercise, everything would have been thrown out.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so actually one of the girls from my work suggested that I see a kinesiologist was actually at the beginning of I guess my journey back out of the mud. And so living in Mount Martha, I contacted Damien Brown, who's a very close friend of yours and
Yes, he
partner in
is.
your podcast. And I started to see Damien quite regularly. And, the first thing for him was really to just calm the nervous system, to kind of bring me down to a level that I was no longer in this,
Yeah.
highly
On. Yeah.
on all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
So I did that, and at the same time, I started doing a yoga class. There was a yoga class that I found on the beach. Gorgeous person that's now become not only my yoga mentor but a good friend of mine, and she
Lovely.
does yoga classes on Mount Martha Beach each weekend. And I started going to one of her classes. And the first class I went to, I just loved every second of it. And at the end of it, I just cried. I felt this huge release because it seemed like I just tapped into me. I tapped into
Yeah.
my kind of authenticity that I'd lost over that last year, where I'd
What a
tried to be
relief.
somebody
Yeah.
else and tried to keep up the pace with others. And I just kind of came to that realization of, oh no, you've lost yourself and this is you here now. And so, yeah, that was a real pivotal point for me.
And when we go through such uncertainty, we do get stressed. And when we get stressed, we become more rigid. And then when we become more rigid, we get focused on the past, we overanalyze the future, and we're not in our most creative state. And what I love about what kinesiology does, as you said, it sort of, Damien, helped you get out of being on, which is like your sympathetic nervous system, just being on alert, and then activating, that balance in your system so you can be more calm, therefore more present in the moment. And then we're in our most creative state and we can problem solve better. Blood rushes to the front part of the brain and we can think. So important, isn't it?
It was so important. And the changes I found from just a few sessions, and one of the issues was problem solving. I couldn't make a decision, and here I was in a leadership role that required decision making, and I felt like I couldn't make a decision. And that was something where I began to witness the change in myself, where I sort of could see, wow, this is really interesting. Yeah.
So what was your turning point coming out of the darkness? Like, was there a moment, or was it just, what did you notice that turned you around the corner to get better and rise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that particular yoga class was the point where I realized I had that sensation of feeling whole for a moment, and that felt like such a contrast to the way I'd been living my life for those past few months. And then something that the yoga teacher got us to do, it happened to be a New Year's Eve, and a bit like a New Year's resolution, we have a thing in yoga called a sankalpa. And so it's an affirmation that you say to yourself over and over again. And it's again that idea of what you think is what you become. And so, we'd kind of come into this amazing meditative state, and she'd sort of said, just see what comes up for you. And so for me, the words, I am strong, I am resilient, came up for me. And so with that, I felt like, yeah, you gotta get out of this. Like, this, you need some strength. You need to get out of this because your family needs you and you need you. And so, and then the resilience aspect was, you've got to fight out of it. You've got to find a way to be better. And so that became my daily affirmation. So it was, I am strong, I am resilient. And that kind of started to build and build and build and pull me out of the deep muck.
Yeah, and I can see it because what you believe is what matters. And sometimes before we believe something, we do have to rewire our brain, recite it, think about it, feel it, and then as we feel more and more connected, that's how I believe we can shift what we're believing. And then if what we believe shifts, then our biochemistry changes, and we can either pick that alarm state or, growth and repair. And picking the alarm state, picking's the wrong word, because it's totally out of our control if we're perceiving stress. And then we can change our minds about our situation and therefore what stresses us out. So it's just so amazing how the body's so connected. But I think we're supposed to totally lose our way in life.
Yeah.
And I think we're supposed to feel these ways. And did that help you discover who you are in a whole new way?
Absolutely. And it showed me some of the inner strength that I did have.
And what you're made of. Yeah.
And it took me back to really tapping into what excites you in life and what makes a difference to the way you operate, and what's important and who's important, and how are you going to maintain and grow in those areas.
I love
and I felt a real shift of balance. So I'd say it was like 90% of my life was career. And sorry, it wasn't family career, but it was like so much of my energy was put into career. And I didn't ever have time for myself. And through this, it kind of made me say, I'm going to spend lots of time on career because that's still really important. And there's a financial implication if I don't. But I'm also going to find what I love doing, because I'd lost the passion of the job. So I had to find another passion. I could do a really good job of the job, but it wasn't really exciting and I wasn't growing. So I sort of had to find something else to set my soul on fire and then apply some of that back to the job to get reignited with the job. So it's a
great idea.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a shift in how I'd always thought.
Yeah, it's probably led you to discover new things that you really like. About wellness and about yourself and what matters.
Absolutely.
So how is your life better now having gone through that?
Oh, it's so much more balanced for
Yes.
starters. Um, I think that I do a lot in the wellness space personally. I have my
You do?
I have my own yoga practice that I do. I meditate daily, my daily sadhana, we call it. So a daily practice that helps to kind of reset the physical body, calm the mind, move the energy around with some breath work and things like that. And I find that that just gets me very stable in
Yep.
myself. And when I'm very stable in myself and I can witness my reactions to things,
Yes.
I'm able to cope with all the stresses of the daily job. I'm able
Totally.
to cope with the commute to and from work. I'm able to cope with all the stuff that mothering three gorgeous children brings, and being a wife and balancing time for my parents and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm coming from a base of stability and
You've
strength,
got to
and
find your inner anchor at the start of the day, don't you?
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
When I did your morning yoga class one day, I felt it. I felt that you're really good at it. You're really good with your words and your energy and then the movement. Like, so you do that every morning.
Yeah, every morning I do it without fail. I do my meditation first. The minute I wake up, really, I get up, I get this tongue scraper, scrape
Yep.
all the toxins off the tongue and everything,
Yep.
get myself all set up, and then I do Vedic meditation. So that's a 20-minute practice which I do, and then that is just the beginning of
Yeah.
my mind is clear and I'm calm, and then I get up and do an asana practice, so a movement, normal yoga type of class,
Yeah.
and that gets the body ready, and I'm
Yeah.
ready to face the day.
Because when we're anchored, we're more flexible, and then we can see things from, if there's traffic in the morning, we're like, oh, okay, I'll listen to a podcast. Whereas if we're more rigid, we get so bothered by it. And
Absolutely.
and then our reactions are connected to what we're believing, and then what biochemistry will fire. So it all has a ripple effect. Let's talk about, so 3littlemoons.com, which is your website. That's
Yeah.
your yoga business. Tell us about that.
Well, that's sort of my passion.
Yeah.
So, it started as I did my yoga teacher training a few years ago, and I started with just having a Friday night candlelight yin in my home studio. I've got a space here, which we can't use at the moment, but was using. And it was a chance for me to share my teachings, and to inspire others to find their own inner light and find their own inner calmness. And so I started doing that once a month. And then I started to think about, where do I really, really feel like my yoga guide skills can be used. And so I kept with Three Little Moons. So Three Little Moons is probably a little bit more feminine based.
Yep.
It's probably more about, I definitely tap into the traditional yoga practices. We'll use some mantra. Um, we'll use some pranayam. We use kriya. So I kind of, it's more traditional, a little bit more ritualistic, and but it's still good, simple yoga for anybody. And you'll notice a shift in yourself after you've done one of my yoga classes. But
Yeah.
then I felt like there was this real opportunity and a real miss in the yoga market for men. And I work in a pretty masculine energy type of environment,
Yeah.
in retail fashion, and I felt like that's an area that I work well in, and I could bring that to the yoga space. So, yeah, about 18 months ago or 2 years ago, I started up Yoga for Bros. So it's yoga with four bros. And it started off as just a Tuesday night, a small gathering actually of some of my husband's mates.
Yeah.
And before we closed at the time of COVID, we were getting sort of 18 to 20 guys each Tuesday night. So they'd come to my yoga space. We have a rule of no omming so that they don't get too captured by any of that. But I draw them in through come and have a good stretch, because of
Yeah.
course every guy thinks that they need a good stretch.
Yeah.
But through it, we do some breath work and we do some meditation. And by the end of it, they come for the stretch, but
Yeah.
but when they leave, they say they come back for the shavasana at the end, which is the deep meditation we do at the end, because guys never take the time out for
No.
themselves,
No.
and they don't ever quieten their minds enough and
Yeah.
quieten their bodies enough, and so that's been a whole new opportunity that's come out of what started as really just this very feminine yoga business and yoga brand. And that's still, the umbrella of my wellness business. But
Yes.
Yoga for Bros has been a great outcome. And I feel like I'm really helping these guys, and
Yeah.
none of them are like yogis, like they're tradies and they're
Blokes.
regular guys, and they also get a free beer at the end, so that does help them hook them in. But by the end, they'll come back. They couldn't care less, but later if they get a beer or not,
Fabulous.
yeah,
That's,
feel the shift.
and you've got an online course that you've just released.
Yes, yeah. So Yoga for Bros, it's called the Bros Toolbox to a Calmer Life.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's 5 days worth of content, but they get access to it for a year, because once you've done the 5 days, you pick and choose the parts that you like. And all it involves is like a short 20-minute morning movement session. So like a yoga session, but we'll call it morning movement so everyone's comfortable with it. There's a choice of two, a standing or a seated, depending on what level of energy you've got for the day. And then there's 5 days of, we call them smoko sessions, but just 10-minute mini meditations that just really start to quieten that mind and stabilize them. And then at the end of the day, if they've got time, there's a 25-minute deep meditation, which is really a yoga nidra, which is, that very deep. Yoga nidra brings you into that state between being asleep and awake, but it helps to calm the nervous system, and it helps to help you sleep well that night. So
Amazing.
yeah, I've got quite a few guys going through it, and they're all kind of saying it really, really helps them. So that it's in little bite-sized bits, so that no one's making a big lifelong commitment to it. It's just a few tools in their toolbox to
Wonderful. Oh,
help cope.
such a great idea. And so everyone can find that on yoga4.com.
That's right. And yoga number 4 bros, BROS.com.
Bros.com. And number is that a symbol number?
Yes, yeah. So the actual 4. Yeah.
I'll put all that in the notes anyway.
Thanks.
So if there was one thing that stands out that you've learned on what we've spoken about today, what would be the one thing you've learned that you'd love to share today?
I think learning to tap into your authenticity.
Yeah.
I think, and however that is for you, I think to do that, there's a few ways to get to that. One is to somehow find a way that calms you down, somehow find a way to become quiet. And for some people, for me, it's yoga, but for some people, it's go for a walk, might be catch up and have a chat with a mate or something like that. But start to get calm, and then just start to kind of tap into why are you amazing? Like, why are you here, and what's your uniqueness, and
your superpowers.
what are your superpowers exactly? And I think that if you can focus on them, if we can start to love ourselves, then we start to prioritize ourselves. We start to think positively, as we've already talked about, and if we're thinking positively, we are being positive, and that creates a state where you can cope with anything.
And when you think like a leader, you act like a leader. And when we're stressed, we jump out of our bodies. When you know how you feel, you know who you are. And when I've been stressed, I forget how I feel because I don't want to feel.
That's right.
That's the thing, getting calm back in your body with all this movement, conversation and mindset tools. That's what it's all about, isn't it? Giving the mind and body the best environment to do that.
Yeah, and it's exactly that, creating that space between your reaction, your kind of physical reaction, and then how you respond to that. Because I think if you can suddenly be sitting there and feel tension in the chest or the stomach, and stop and think, why am I feeling that? Oh, that's because that person is giving me a bit of anxiety because he wants me to go over there and do something. Like, if you can start to unravel it, you just are so set up to cope with anything.
I love it. This is so cool. I love this. Do you have special tips that you want to share with everybody today?
I mean, I guess just, yeah, I think first of all, trying to find a way to quieten and stabilize yourself. That's got to be the beginning of
Yes.
your journey to self wellness. Then being able to observe and witness yourself, as we've talked about.
Yeah.
And then from there, find what sets the soul on fire. And that's where
Yeah.
your authenticity lies. And they sound like three really simple steps, but
They're so important though.
it's quite the journey. But I think if you can do that, you really set yourself up for a life of freedom and happiness. And ultimately, that's what we all want, I think.
I think what I've learned today chatting to you is, when things don't turn out the way that you think they will, or life feels like it's taking you on a different path, to really trust it. And even though you feel that inner resistance, it's supposed to feel that way so that you don't stay the same. It's time for a change. I'm very animated. It's time for a change. And if you can give yourself the best environment to stay calm, you're going to deal with those changes and perhaps navigate yourself onto a new path that you're supposed to embark on next.
That's exactly right. I mean, I use a lot. I use the word surrender a lot. I think as uncomfortable as things can be, if you can learn to not grasp and attach and fight,
Yeah.
and just let it play out, and know this too will pass, because everything does, and know that this is somehow part of your journey. If you can just try and react in that way, I think that you'll learn a lot along the way, and you'll come out really stable still. You'll come out. I mean, COVID is a great example of that. It's
Absolutely.
caused a lot of us to want to fight it, to not do what we're told to do. Like, it's brought up so much. But if we just find a way to live in it, to surrender with it,
Yeah.
look at all the opportunity it has brought up. It's brought up amazing things if you embrace it. Time with family, time with loved ones, quiet time for yourself,
Yeah.
career-wise, and opportunities like the ones that you've set up too. It's forced a rethink about how.
Yeah, I would never have had time to create an online course if I couldn't really stop. And
Agree.
yeah, and I know my career is completely different now. What I'm going to be doing is totally different. And I think that's really meant to be. And it's when we're calmer and happier, we can see things in that way. There's lots of negatives that I could think of, but
I'm sure.
I don't focus on them. Like
Agree.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Linda. It's been so cool chatting with you. I think you're amazing, and these golden nuggets I know are going to help so many people.
Amazing. Well, thanks for having me, and likewise. I love everything that you're doing, and I
Thank
look forward to
you.
seeing all the next chapters unfold.
And I'm looking forward to catching up Bayside very soon.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thank you.
That's all right. All right, everyone. I hope you loved the today's vlog. And no matter what you're going through, you can overcome it and discover what you are made of. See you next time.